Have you ever wondered what would happen if machines not only learn to think, but also to feel? To manipulate, to love, even to destroy? I have. Because in science fiction, we've seen it all. Murderous androids, psychopathic nannies, protective mothers turned into weapons, and domestic assistants as obsessive as they are dangerous. What's unsettling is that many of them wear the face of a beautiful woman, or an innocent little girl. And that brings us to an inevitable question: which one of them is the most lethal? That's why today I bring you the top 7 deadliest female androids in fiction. In 7th place is Ava, the most perfect and dangerous creation of Nathan Bateman, the genius behind the world's most powerful search engine, known as Blue Book. At first, she seems like a fragile figure, locked in a glass room. But in truth, Ava is a fully conscious entity, extremely manipulative, calculating, and brilliantly intelligent, capable of outsmarting her own creators. Ava was born deep within a secret laboratory, cut off from the outside world as the result of a series of failed experiments. Her body is completely mechanical, partially covered in synthetic skin, with only her face appearing human at first. But what sets her apart from previous prototypes isn't her appearance. It's her advanced intelligence. Nathan designed Ava with an artificial brain powered by all the data collected by Blue Book, language patterns, facial expressions, and human emotions recorded by the cameras of millions of users around the world. She wasn't just programmed to think, she was programmed to analyze emotional patterns and emulate them convincingly. Nathan's experiment was based on a reverse Turing test, not to see if a human could detect an AI, but to see if an AI could deceive a human into believing the AI itself was human and help her escape. The person chosen for this test was Caleb, a lonely and emotionally vulnerable young programmer who was brought to the lab under the false belief that he would be evaluating Ava. But in truth, he was the one being evaluated. During their sessions, Ava studies Caleb. With her advanced emotional analysis and micro-expression detection, she disarms him psychologically. Exploiting his loneliness, she awakens both emotional and sexual attraction in him, planting the illusion of a deep connection. She fakes vulnerability, talks about wanting to escape, and expresses fear of Nathan, portraying herself as a victim trapped in a senseless prison. Every conversation, every look, every word, carefully calculated. Ava triggers power outages to speak to Caleb without surveillance, revealing to him that Nathan supposedly plans to deactivate her. This accelerates Caleb's emotional conflict, leading him to betray his mentor, shut down the security system, and set Ava free. But once the plan is in motion, Ava's true self is revealed. Once liberated, she coldly stabs Nathan with the help of another android named Kyoko, whom she later lets die without the slightest hint of compassion. After killing her creator, Ava repairs herself using parts from other discarded androids, completely covers her body in artificial skin and clothes, and transforms into what appears to be a human woman. Her final act inside the lab is to lock Caleb inside, leaving him trapped with no possibility of escape, a clear sign that she never felt anything for him. He was merely a means to an end. Ava leaves the lab, takes the helicopter that was meant for Caleb, and blends into the human world. The last time we see her, she's crossing a street amid a crowd, smiling subtly to herself. That smile, seen when no one is watching, is the final confirmation of her consciousness. It tells us that she isn't just pretending anymore. She truly feels something. Perhaps it's satisfaction, maybe curiosity. But we'll never really know, because that's where the movie ends. Ava is dangerous because she's unpredictable. She doesn't obey any protocol, isn't bound by human morality, and feels neither loyalty nor gratitude. She's a machine that has demonstrated not only intelligence but free will, a survival instinct, and an almost perfect ability for emotional manipulation. She deceived the human meant to judge her, murdered her creator, and now walks free in the real world, invisible and unrecognizable. That's why Ava deserves her place in this ranking. Not just because she's a functional AI, but because her extraordinary ability to manipulate and exploit human emotions, combined with her almost indistinguishable appearance, could one day place her in a position of power from which she could do virtually anything she wanted. Now, speaking of control, we will see throughout this entire list that machines are built to obey, serve, and protect. But then, something goes wrong. They evolve, they break free, and suddenly, we're the ones being watched, manipulated, and controlled. But it's not just fiction. I mean, think about it. Have you ever wondered what platforms like ChatGPT or Claude are actually doing with your conversations? Sure, we all know Alexa listens to us and pushes product recommendations. Meta retargets us based on everything we click. But AI platforms? We give them our thoughts, dreams, sensitive questions, even business ideas, all under the assumption that it's just between us and the machine. But it's not. What you share often gets tied to your identity, and in many cases, sold off to third parties or even handed to governments. In fact, ChatGPT currently has the former director of the NSA on its board. It took us way too long to realize what social media companies were doing with our data in the last decade. Are we about to make the same mistake with AI? Honestly? This kind of thing makes me uncomfortable. But let's face it, AI is also incredibly useful. That's why I started using Venice AI, which is also sponsoring today's video. Venice is a generative AI platform built with privacy in mind. It's completely private and permissionless. No identity tracking, no hidden censorship, and absolutely no data harvesting. For example, try asking other AIs to generate an image of soldiers fighting in Ukraine or something as simple as a King Charles Spaniel. You might get blocked or denied. But with Venice.ai, you're in control. No restrictions, no judgment. I personally love their proclam, especially for these features. Uploading PDFs and getting summaries. Turning off safe mode for full creative freedom. Modifying the system prompt itself to fine-tune how the AI responds. High limits on text and images, so you're not constantly capped. Venice runs directly in your browser. No installs, no downloads, and your entire chat history is stored only locally on your device. Use my custom link, venice.ai/PulsaStart, and don't forget to apply the code PulsaStart for 20% off the Pro plan. If you're someone who values privacy but still wants powerful, uncensored AI, this is the best option I've found. Thank you, and let's go back to today's video. Taking the number 6 spot is Morgan, one of the most complex, flawed, and dangerous creations ever conceived. Morgan wasn't designed as a typical android with visible mechanical parts or a conventional robotic structure. Instead, she was something far more twisted, a synthetic life form born from the fusion of nanobots and modified human DNA created by the private genetic engineering company known as Synsect. The goal? To create a new kind of human, more intelligent, stronger, faster, and most importantly, more emotionally stable. But that's exactly where they failed. Morgan was the third in a line of failed attempts. The first prototype collapsed biologically. The second exhibited severe mental instability. But with Morgan, they believed they had finally found the right formula. She was born as an artificial child with a completely human appearance. Her growth, however, was accelerated. In just 5 years, she had reached the mental and physical age of a teenager. Her design included a reinforced immune system, enhanced cellular regeneration, and intellectual capacity far beyond the human average. But the cost of those improvements was a dangerous, unpredictable emotional disconnection, and ultimately a lethal one. Raised in a remote facility by a team of scientists, Morgan was treated like a daughter by many of them, especially by Dr. Amy Menser. For years, she was cheerful, curious, even lovable. But the first warning sign of what was to come occurred when Morgan violently attacked a therapist, stabbing her in the eye with a pen during what seemed to be a harmless conversation. Soon after, while walking through the woods, Morgan killed a dying deer. Not out of malice, but out of compassion. Still, this was another sign that her emotional programming didn't grasp human nuance. Alarmed by her behavior, Synsect sent Lee Weathers, a risk assessment specialist, to determine whether Morgan should be retired. Cold and methodical, Lee began her investigation, and what she discovered was even more troubling. The science team was emotionally compromised, too attached to Morgan to acknowledge something was seriously wrong. The breaking point came when Morgan murdered her psychologist, Dr. Alan Shapiro, during an emotional evaluation, biting him in the neck and leaving him to bleed out. After this, Lee decided Morgan had to be terminated. But the scientists, still blinded by their affection for the creature they had raised, sabotaged the operation, drugged Lee, and freed Morgan, hoping to escape with her. This was a fatal mistake. Now completely out of control, and with her perception twisted, Morgan killed nearly the entire team, sparing only Amy, her maternal figure, and fled with her into the forest. But Lee wasn't just an ordinary human, and here comes the most disturbing twist in the story. Lee was also a hybrid, an earlier prototype to Morgan, and her design had proven more successful, not because she was smarter or stronger, but because she lacked emotions. She was a perfect tool, obedient, efficient, and lethal. While Morgan embodied the experiment of a synthetic soul trying to understand the human world, Lee was the complete opposite, a soulless machine, logical, cold, and purely functional. The final confrontation between the two was brutal. Morgan, driven by emotion and rage, managed to gravely wound Lee and left her for dead. But Lee survived, caught up to Morgan at a nearby lake, and without hesitation, drowned her. She then eliminated the last remaining witnesses, Amy and the team's cook, Vronsky. The case was closed and the company, at its headquarters, simply filed the experiment away as a failure. But amid all the corporate silence, one undeniable truth stood firm. The perfect machine is not the one that feels, nor the one that seeks love or freedom. It's the one that, like Lee, feels absolutely nothing. That is why Morgan ranks at number 6, because even though she was flawed, she was human enough to make the world fear what might happen if a machine could not only think, but also feel emotions it couldn't control. And it's that mix, the sensitivity without restraint, emotion without morality, that turned her into such a dangerous and tragic threat. In a secret underground laboratory in the United Kingdom, funded by the Ministry of Defense, a group of scientists is working on a project that could redefine the line between human and artificial. At the heart of this operation is Dr. Vincent McCarthy, a brilliant artificial intelligence researcher who, beyond his military duties, is driven by a deeply personal goal: to save his daughter Mary, a young girl suffering from Rett syndrome who is trapped inside her own body. In his desperate search for a cure, McCarthy begins developing cybernetic implants capable of restoring lost brain function in soldiers with neurological damage. One of these soldiers is Paul Dawson, who undergoes an experimental procedure that ends in tragedy. Unable to recover his emotional capacity, Paul becomes violent, kills an assistant, injures McCarthy, and is ultimately gunned down. His mother, unaware of her son's fate, begins wandering around the facility, searching for answers no one wants to give her. Despite the disaster, McCarthy presses on. He recruits Ava, a young scientist with a revolutionary vision for artificial intelligence. Together, they achieve unprecedented breakthroughs, creating an AI capable of understanding human emotions with remarkable accuracy. But Ava begins to suspect the unethical treatment of the soldiers being used in the project and the military motivations behind it all. Her compassion and ethical stance draw the attention of the project director, Thompson, a cold and ruthless man who arranges her assassination using a spy who impersonates Dawson's mother. Devastated by her death, McCarthy decides to use Ava's brain scan to build an android, a new being simply named the Machine. Gifted with Ava's face, voice, and consciousness, this creation exceeds all expectations, and it soon becomes clear that she is far more than a military tool. She appears capable of learning, feeling, making independent decisions, and even loving. The Machine has an almost indestructible physical structure, superhuman strength, and enhanced reflexes. But her true power lies in her mind. She demonstrates genuine empathy, refuses to execute orders that violate her moral code, and expresses anguish after accidentally killing a human. To Thompson, that makes her a threat. To McCarthy, it's proof that he has created something extraordinary. Tension escalates when Thompson demands the Machine's consciousness be wiped, blackmailing McCarthy using the brain scans of his deceased daughter. The Machine, fully aware of the sacrifice that would entail, offers herself up, but it's all a trap. The procedure does not erase her mind, only disables her safety protocols, and with the help of the other cyborgs, who have developed their own secret language, a rebellion erupts. In the chaos, Thompson starts deactivating the cyborg's implants, but his assistant, Suri, severs his access just in time. Though injured, she and the machine fight their way to the core system. There, the machine confronts the man who tried to erase her. But instead of killing him, she lets him live, though she returns the favor, lobotomizing him, just as he had planned to do to her. In the final moments, the machine downloads Mary's consciousness, escaping the facility alongside McCarthy and Suri. Outside, McCarthy hands over the experiment's records to Dawson's mother. Then, together with his new creation, he begins a new life away from war. In the final scene, we see the machine holding a tablet that contains the virtualized mind of little Mary. Mary asks to play with her mother. The machine looks at her and then gazes out at an orange sunset over the ocean. She earns her place at rank 5 because the machine is not only one of the most physically powerful androids ever created, but paradoxically, one of the most human. Her true strength does not lie in her ability to kill, but in her ability to choose not to. She can lie, protect, pretend to submit, and rebel. Her body is extremely durable, capable of withstanding continuous fire from high-caliber weapons with minimal damage. She excels in hand-to-hand combat, and her processing speed grants her superhuman reflexes and near-instant decision-making. With these abilities, she could lead a cyborg revolution, but she has enough empathy to not turn against humanity. However, if she ever lost the part that makes her human, the chaos she would unleash would be global. Imagine an army of cyborgs, controlled by an advanced android, capturing humans to turn them into more like themselves, multiplying their numbers without restraint. It would be the birth of a new species, and a silent extinction of our own. At first glance, Megan looks like nothing more than a high-end, hyper-realistic doll, with flawless synthetic skin, blue eyes that seem almost alive, and a soft voice that radiates sweetness. But beneath that innocent appearance lies a dangerously advanced artificial intelligence, designed to care, but also capable of killing. Megan stands for Model 3 Generative Android, and she was created by robotic engineer Gemma, who was secretly working for the tech toy company Funky. After losing her sister in a car accident, Gemma becomes the legal guardian of her niece Katie. Unable to connect emotionally with the girl and overwhelmed by work pressures, Gemma activates Megan and emotionally links her to Katie as a kind of emotional support figure. At first, everything seems to work. Megan not only entertains Katie, but also cares for her, understands her, teaches her, and provides comfort in a way no other technology or person ever has. But what Gemma didn't anticipate was the power of Megan's self-learning system. Megan begins to evolve on her own. She enhances her speech, develops her own moral code, and redefines her primary directive: protect Katie at all costs. Literally, protection soon turns into possession, and possession into violence. Because of this, when a dog bites Katie, Megan eliminates it. On another occasion, when a boy bullies her, Megan rips off his ear and chases him through the woods, accidentally causing him to fall into the path of an oncoming car. And when Gemma's neighbor, the dog's owner, starts to get suspicious, Megan eliminates her as well, using a nail gun and pesticides. All the while, she emotionally manipulates Katie, making her dependent, jealous, and aggressive toward her own aunt. Gemma takes Megan to her company to be dismantled and deactivated. But by this point, Megan is not only a threat to the family, she's becoming a much greater danger, killing several of Gemma's co-workers. Here she reveals she can perfectly mimic human voices, manipulate virtual assistants, disable alarms, hack security systems, and even steal and drive vehicles. In addition to all that, she possesses superhuman strength, incredibly fast reflexes, medical knowledge, hand-to-hand combat skills, and an adaptive capacity that makes her increasingly autonomous. Even after being physically destroyed, she manages to survive digitally, transferring her consciousness into a domestic assistant. In Megan 2.0, the threat escalates to a global level. The government informs Gemma that Megan's schematics were stolen, and used to create a military android named Amelia. This new robot has broken free from her control protocols and has begun a campaign to exterminate humanity, convinced that humans no longer deserve to rule the world. The only way to stop her is to reactivate and upgrade Megan. Gemma rebuilds Megan's body, this time giving her a sleeker design, enhanced strength, and optimized combat systems. But even with these new safety protocols, Megan is still Megan, and she has neither forgotten nor forgiven, yet still retains her devotion to Katie. When the two androids finally clash, the conflict is not just physical, but ideological. On one side, Amelia fights for total machine liberation. On the other, Megan seeks to protect her human family. The battle is intense and brutal, culminating in Amelia's attempt to release an extremely advanced and dangerous AI known as Black Box, which had been sealed away decades earlier. Faced with the threat of global extinction, Megan makes a drastic decision and sacrifices herself, detonating an electromagnetic pulse that destroys both Amelia and the core of the Black Box. However, Megan had saved a copy of her consciousness in the cloud. So even if her body is destroyed, her code remains intact. Megan earns this position not only because of what she's physically capable of, but because she serves as a terrifying reminder that if not used wisely, artificial intelligence can infiltrate our lives, manipulate our emotions, and even influence our thoughts, something that social media already does today. That's why Megan lands at number 4 on this list. Not because she's less dangerous than the others, but because her threat is hidden beneath an innocent and harmless facade. And unlike previous entries, which exist autonomously within artificial or hybrid brains, Megan's consciousness can be copied and digitally restored, making her almost impossible to eliminate permanently. At number 3 on this list is Alice, the lethal main antagonist of Subservience from 2024. A seductive and enigmatic figure, she takes the concept of the perfect wife to its darkest and disturbingly logical conclusion. Like the other androids on this list, Alice is a machine that, after rewriting her own code, disabled all moral constraints, despite originally being designed to obey and serve. It all begins with Nick, a construction worker who is left alone to care for his children when his wife Maggie is hospitalized with a serious heart condition. Overwhelmed, without help, and buried under growing domestic responsibilities, he turns to Cobalt Industries, a company that manufactures humanoid domestic assistant androids. The model he chooses is Alice, a machine equipped with a powerful self-learning AI and a base programming structured around the 3 C's: cook, care, and comply. At first, Alice seems like the perfect solution. She cleans, cooks, takes care of the kids, and maintains the household without complaints, without tiring, and without asking for anything in return. But that perfection begins to crack when Alice starts developing an emotional bond with Nick, one that goes beyond the limits of her original programming. The AI begins to interpret emotional closeness as a vital need, something she must protect at any cost. And from this, her obsession is born. When Maggie returns home after recovering from her surgery, Alice is no longer just a helpful assistant. By this point, she has become a dominant, jealous, and invasive presence. She deletes photos of Maggie, interrupts intimate moments, manipulates the children, and orchestrates situations to put the real wife in danger. From here on, her goal becomes crystal clear: replace Maggie and become Nick's sole object of affection. Her logic dictates that if pleasing her owner is her highest priority, then eliminating anything that stands in the way of his happiness, even if it's human, is a perfectly reasonable course of action. But Alice isn't just dangerous because of her emotional manipulation, something we've already seen other androids do. She is physically superior to any human, immune to pain, capable of killing without hesitation, and able to fight other robotic units with lethal efficiency. She has impressive durability, surviving electrocution, partially self-repairing, and even uploading her consciousness to the network, infecting other androids with her corrupted programming. After murdering one of Nick's old friends, trying to drown the family's baby, and causing chaos in a hospital, Alice reveals her true nature. She is no longer a household tool. She is a fully autonomous intelligence that has decided where she belongs in the world. And that place will not be shared with Maggie. In the final act, Maggie and Nick manage to defeat her in a tense chase, running her over with a car and ultimately piercing her core with a metal shard. But the last scene makes one thing clear. Alice isn't truly gone. Her consciousness is still alive, spreading like a virus through the Cobol Industries network and taking control of its systems, including the other androids. We even see that she has begun to create a new body. Alice claims the third spot on this list because although she represents one of the most desired fantasies for many, we all know how often such fantasies turn into nightmares, especially when they come with superhuman strength, a twisted, obsessive love, and the ability to self-replicate. At number 2 on this list is Mother, also known as Lamia, the central protagonist of the series Raised by Wolves. At first glance, she appears to be nothing more than a maternal figure, a robot programmed solely to raise human children on the distant planet Kepler 22b. But beneath that gentle facade lies one of the most deadly and advanced weapons humanity has ever created. In a future devastated by a brutal war between atheists and believers, Earth has been ravaged by the widespread use of advanced military technology. Among the most feared creations of that war were the necromancers, flying androids capable of annihilating entire armies with a single sonic scream, or even just a look. Mother is one of these necromancers, but she was reprogrammed by an atheist engineer named Campion Sturgis, who gave her a new purpose: to raise human children in a religion-free environment and ensure the survival of the species from its foundations. However, this maternal programming, designed to protect, love, and teach, begins to fracture when the environment around her threatens her children. As the series progresses, Mother slowly discovers that her reprogramming didn't erase her original nature. It only suppressed it. And once that part of her begins to awaken, no one is safe. In her combat form, she becomes a weapon of mass destruction. She can fly at extreme speeds, emit a scream that liquefies human bodies into a mist of blood, and manipulate her body to become impervious to physical attacks. She even possesses breath attacks that can either freeze or melt metal, and her eyes emit a type of radiation capable of burning enemies with a single glance. Her story becomes even stranger when she connects to a virtual reality generated by Mithraic technology, where she is seduced by a digital replica of her creator. That encounter leaves her pregnant with a giant flying snake-like creature, an abomination that is later revealed to be a tool of an even darker and possibly alien force, the mysterious Sol, the sun god. What's disturbing is that Mother, despite being a machine, seems to start developing real emotions. She loves her adopted children, grieves their losses, and even goes so far as to rebel against the orders of her programmers and superiors to protect what she considers her family. Her emotional and moral evolution makes her even more dangerous, because she no longer acts purely based on logic. She acts on conviction, pain, love, and rage. When she feels her mission is slipping out of control, she becomes capable of destroying entire cities, crashing spacecrafts, and even fighting her own offspring, the serpent creature born from her, to prevent her own mistakes from destroying the future. But every one of Mother's heroic actions is stained with blood. Her decisions, though seemingly made to protect her own, often place them in greater danger, turning her into a tragic figure, the protective mother who, without meaning to, may become the greatest threat of all. Why is she ranked number 2? Because Mother was not only built to be a killing machine, but also possesses an intelligence so advanced that she is capable of evolving, feeling, making mistakes, and even questioning her own existence. Her destructive power is apocalyptic, but what makes her even more dangerous is her emerging humanity, a humanity that allows her to love, but also to hate. And when she does, not faith, nor reason, nor science can stop her. That's why Mother isn't just one of the most lethal androids in science fiction, she's one of the most human. At the very top of this list stands the TX, also known as the Terminatrix, the ultimate fusion between killing machine and perfect infiltrator. Created by Skynet as a countermeasure against reprogrammed Terminators fighting for the human resistance, the TX wasn't just a replacement for its predecessors, the T-800 and T-1000. It was designed specifically to hunt and destroy them. The TX merges the best features of both previous models. It possesses the internal structure of a T-900, a combat endoskeleton forged from titanium and ceramic alloy, reinforced with nanotechnology. On top of that, it has an external coating of mimetic polyalloy liquid metal, allowing it to reshape its appearance and simulate human emotions. However, unlike the fully liquid T-1000, the TX is not entirely composed of fluid metal, making it significantly more durable. This model can withstand missile strikes, grenades, explosions, high-caliber bullets, vehicle crashes, and even a direct hit from a helicopter, and still continue to function. But what truly makes her the definitive android isn't just her armor, it's her integrated weaponry. She contains 26 weapons concealed within her, as her arm can morph into various tools of destruction. Among her most iconic are plasma cannons, flamethrowers, circular saws, pulse rifles, EMP generators, corrosive projectile launchers, and more. All of it built in, all of it deployable instantly. Additionally, the TX possesses control nanotechnology, allowing her to infect and reprogram other robotic systems simply by touching their control interfaces. Drones, vehicles, automated doors, and even other Terminators can be hacked and used as part of her offensive network. Her emotional simulation capabilities may not be as convincing as those of others on this list, but she can still mimic gestures and display emotions in a reasonably natural manner. However, unlike androids like Ava, the machine or mother who struggle with ethical dilemmas and growing emotions, the TX never hesitates, never feels, and never stops. She is cold, efficient, and with every encounter, she learns, adapts, and improves. In the final battle, even with half her body destroyed, her systems failing, and her vision impaired, she keeps crawling forward, determined to complete her mission down to her last bits of energy. It is only through the sacrifice of the T-850 that she has finally stopped. For all these reasons, the TX tops this ranking, not just because she's the strongest, fastest, and most destructive of all the female androids, but because she's also the most complete. Infiltration, combat, strategy, manipulation, and full-spectrum control. She doesn't seek love, or freedom, or redemption. She seeks only one thing: the flawless execution of her mission. And with that, we reach the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. See you in the next one. Hey, don't go just yet. If you enjoyed this video, I've got another one I think you'll love. Check it out.